start with an invocation offered up by our Communications Director, Josh Lee, after which we'll have our Fire Marshal Watkins, Chief Watkins, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we thank thee for this great opportunity to gather as a city government, and we thank thee so very much for the gift of being able to exercise self-government, and we ask for thy spirit and the spirit of discernment to help us know the best path forward in the items on the agenda tonight. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Chief. Move to the citizen comment portion of our meeting. So we do have one item up for public hearing, I believe. Yes, that is the Water Conservation and Management Plan. So you're here to speak to that. I'd ask you to just hold off your comments until item 9A. Anything else? If any member of the public would like to address the council, please step forward. Just give us your name, and you'll be given about 3 minutes. Okay. Seeing none, then we'll close the citizen comment portion. We'll go to elected official reports. Anything to report tonight? Mr. McDougall, Councilmember McDougall.
Yes, I'll be quick, Mayor. Just letting the council know they should have received today an invitation from Transjordan for the opening dinner. If you did not get that, please let me know if you plan on attending. So that would come via email. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is Councilmember Perucci joining us? Just joined? Okay. Councilmember Perucci, anything you'd like to report on tonight?
No, nothing on my end. No, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McKay.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thanks to UFA. They came out to our 24th of July neighborhood parade, and they always do a great job, and they're really friendly with the kids. We appreciate that. Also, great job to the events department, the Friday Fun Night. It was so fun, and the public safety night last night was great. I just heard from so many different people how much they love the hometown feel in Riverton and all of the city events, and we, couldn't do it without the great staff that we have, and I really appreciate it. Summer evenings in Riverton are the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Broker, anything to report on?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one brief item, and that is simply to follow up on the resident last time we met who was concerned about mosquitoes and those little black midges out there in the golf course. I'd just like to report that mosquito abatement has done a great job, and they have been sending a report to those residents every single week and checking for mosquitoes out there. And we did find one mosquito with Western Nile, so the area was treated for that. So they're doing a great job and follow up every week.
Awesome, thank you. Councilmember Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to report real quickly on the 118th sewer, that the sewer extension that's been going on out there, redoing the pipeline. Good news is that sewer is supposed to be a 2-year project. It's actually only going to be a 16-month project. Right now they're 5 to 6 months ahead of time, and they're finishing that up rapidly. So they're very proud of that. The sewer, of course, it worked with Harriman, it worked with Riverton, it worked with South Jordan as well on that. And the contract included replacing part of our water line as it went along there. And the bid to replace that water line came in actually higher than anticipated, so the sewer district actually kicked in $280,000 to help Riverton City with that, so that we didn't have to go back out to rebid and things like that. They've had a lot of people talk about this has been going on forever, and again, luckily it's going to be shorter than forever. But the sewer, it's up to 20, sometimes 30 feet deep in certain areas, and so it's quite the major undertaking to get down there and lay that huge line. At the same time, in certain areas, because of different crossing utilities, they've had to hand dig with shovels to get down and make sure they're not hitting other utilities with the heavy-duty equipment and things like that. So I don't know if anyone here, you ever dug a hole 30 feet deep by hand? So they're working hard to make that happen. They had several bores, 5 bores they've done under the different canals and aqueducts and Mountain View Corridor and things like that they've done. And then last but not least, the one delay that they did have was over a manhole. There's over 70 manholes in that project, and those manholes are made specific to their exact position where they're going to be and what different laterals and pipes are coming into them. And one of the manholes was not lining up correctly. They had to have one of the 70 remade, and that did delay them in a certain area. But anytime they get delayed like that, they try to move on to another area so they're not backing up the whole project and things. But yeah, when it's all done, the road will be nice, paved fresh, new, and the sewer district will be finished with it for many years to come. And no one else here should be worried about that in their lifetime. So that is everything going on. Otherwise, just grateful for all that, again, Parks and Rec are doing to put together all the community events that we really enjoy, and appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Councilmember. Not much for me to add. I just want to report to the council that we had some conversations. We had a couple of applicants to fill the spot for the co-advisor on the youth council. Given Brock's departure, resignation, moving on. So I think we're gonna be, I've got somebody in mind that I'd like to go ahead and appoint, so you'll see that probably in the next little bit. Other items, continue working with the county with respect to their RFI that they put out on the golf course area. And that's about all that we have. I think that's new to report on. You know, after our executive staff meeting tomorrow, we'll get an update on many of the projects that we have ongoing. That'll be our focus for tomorrow's executive staff meeting. We'll move to item 7A. We have our recognition and presentations tonight. First up is the Emergency Preparedness Committee presentation. So Jason Jones, that is our staff liaison director there for the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and we have one of our Emergency Preparedness resident volunteer committee members here with us tonight. So appreciate Sharon being here tonight with us. So thank you. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, appreciate your time. I'm just going to quickly go over some items that we've accomplished in the last year. A collaborative effort with other cities and other emergency managers. I attend a monthly emergency manager meeting at the Salt Lake County EOC where we can collaborate and develop ideas and strategies on how we can best be prepared in the event of an emergency. So it kind of works out really well for us to all meet there. We also meet with other entities in the valley, Enbridge, Rocky Mountain Power, Red Cross. That's not all of them, but I'm just naming a few there. We also participated in the Utah Great Shakeout, the earthquake exercise. We tested our ham radio that the city owns and we built. And that went really well, worked really well. We also set up our Emergency Operations Center and did a walkthrough, as some of you know, and set up our Starlink. And we videotaped that, so we have that for view if someone that was unable to make it, one of the council members was unable to make it, they can watch that and make suggestions, whatever they feel. It went really well. We did that in conjunction with Unified Fire. So Chief Watkins was there. It was great. We also did some other ham radio testing at other events, our marathon, and we also did one with Salt Lake County Emergency Operations Center as well, in conjunction with all the other cities that have ham radios. We also used our ham radio folks for our Town Days Parade. We had those at strategic locations in the event something happened and we needed to utilize that communication for our crossing guards that were in place because we didn't have radios for those folks. So we could communicate with them on the route. I also been attending and having our committee members attend a monthly emergency committee meeting, and we strategize, and we have one assigned to each one of the council members' districts. I also participated in a cybersecurity tabletop exercise with Lance Tolbert, our IT manager. Invited him. He came with me, and we participated in that at Salt Lake County Emergency Operations Center. It was a 2-day event. I also had Josh from communications. He attended a PIO class that was put on that was beneficial to him. Also, we're finishing up the hazard mitigation plan, and I'll be presenting that to Mr. Hicks, and he'll be presenting that to you for promulgation. Made a few, tweaks to it and updated it and made it more, just updated it. It's usually updated every 5 years. We also did a training for elected officials. Some of the elected officials attended, and they said it was beneficial. I got great feedback from Mr. Hicks on it, and so that went very well. Also, another thing that I worked on with surrounding cities, bordering cities with us, we worked on an evacuation plan with neighboring cities. In the event they have to evacuate, or we do, and we have to utilize routes through their city. Been a little difficult with the construction that we've had to try to get something on paper, but we're real close, because we're real close, as you know, to the construction finishing. We utilized the National Weather Service this time with town days, and I think it was beneficial. Cheryl indicated it was very beneficial. She was in the loop on that. She got updates and whatnot on the National Weather Service. And it was real time, so it made a big difference for us. So we were, warned ahead of time. As you know, we did our night out against crime last night, and we had an emergency preparedness booth there. All of my emergency committee members were there in attendance, and really good community outreach, really good, interaction with residents. So that went really well. I also purchased an additional 3 AEDs. In areas that some of them were expiring, so they were out of date. And then another area that we had was over at the shop at the cemetery. We're going to put one over there because a gentleman had a medical event over there, so you just never know where it's going to happen. So it's kind of nice to have those on hand. But other than that, I open it up for questions if you have any questions of me.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, thanks again to all of our committee members. This is great. We want to have you report at least annually. And I know the council's been so supportive of appropriating the necessary budget for all these resident volunteer committees, but in addition, yours, I think we've given, historically, $15,000 or so annually.
Okay.
Let us know how that's going. If you've expended all that, I guess you wouldn't be shy, I guess, in your reporting here to mention any sort of budgetary requirements. So I'm assuming that you guys are looking good. And Councilmember Baroker, you have a comment or question?
Thank you very much for your report, and I've attended your committee meetings, as you know, and I just am always very impressed with the passionate attitude your safety members have.
Right.
I doubt that there will ever be anyone on that committee that resigns, so you have to wait in line to be on that
Right.
group, right?
Yeah.
I have reviewed the sites, just looking at how we can always get better.
Right.
So I looked at the sites at Taylorsville for their safety and Harriman for their safety. And I felt like Taylorsville has done a really excellent job of clearly defining what the role of the city is versus the role of members of the community.
Okay.
And some of their wording, I think, could be helpful for our residents. So I'd encourage you to look at that.
Okay.
And then my second question is simply about reverse 911.
Okay.
Are we keeping track? Do we know how many residents have signed up for that service? And do we have a way to help engage them to sign up?
Now,
And that's probably Josh's, but since it's part of,
well, I don't know that anybody here can answer that question. If I'm
okay.
speaking out of turn here, let me know. Vec would be able to answer that, give us the hard, fast answer of of who signed up or how many are signed up. And I don't know if they can do that because a lot of times people are signing up with their cell phone and it may not be a correct
Right.
address that they're signing up for. As you know, most people have cell phones now. It used to be that we would sign up with our landline at home, and that would be the way they would sign up. So we did push that last night, as you know, and I know our communications department pushed that. They're pushing that still.
Yeah, and I
For the-
didn't mean to put you on the spot at all. I just think, that's something perhaps we can measure that
Sure.
shows improved engagement of our residents as we get more and more online. And I remember, this may not have been related, but I remember with that explosion that we recently had, there were a couple of residents that were concerned about the timeliness of their information that they received, and I wondered if it had anything to do with that. I don't know.
I
I'm
can't
making a
speak to
complete
that.
assumption.
I can't speak to
Absolutely.
that because I think that was done by Harriman. I think they're the ones that put out the reverse 911.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that, yeah.
I think it's important also to just chime in. The reverse 911, where it's managed by VEC, is really agency agnostic. And there's been a lot of debriefs between Harriman and Riverton, specifically about that event, to have some conversations with VEC, because there was some confusion as to, okay, well, Harriman's issuing this declaration, should Riverton residents listen? And it really, it's based on where you are, not based on what agency told you you need to, and this was right on the border. So we've had some conversations with VEC to even adjust the verbiage there. Because even though Harriman initiated it, it probably should have just said your local law enforcement is requesting that you, whatever the direction was.
Well, great, thank you. Like I said, not a criticism, just always get better. Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Okay,
and we appreciate that.
thank you.
All right, next up, we have the Unified Fire Authority presentation for the month, or every other month, whatever schedule we're on now. So the fire marshals managed to be here despite all the many fires going on across the state of Utah right now. So thanks for being here, Chief.
Thank you. Mayor and council and public, I'd just like to take this moment and say thanks for letting me serve your city. We're going to cover quarter one and quarter two. I won't spend a ton of time, but I definitely want to cover the content thoroughly. Next slide, Jason. This is quarter one, so between January 1 and March 31st, call volume of 541. Again, as a reminder, that's within Riverton city boundaries. 227 of those calls were defined as emergent, and that's basically falls into the category of emergent defined by the computer-aided dispatch system, and that's 42% of those. So one thing that, as far as feedback that I've gotten, is we want to look at comparables and kind of have a contrast there. So I want to focus on, and I'm going to look at my sheet without squinting up there. I'm going to focus on the one that says quarter one yearly total incident count. So it actually goes through 2023, 2024, and 2025. 2023 having 480 within that first quarter. 2024 having 448, and then bumping up to that 541 this current year. So we have seen an increase. We do see some different differentials in call volume, and sometimes it's hard to say why those are happening, but we did see an increase. I won't hop on into every category, but definitely we have some fires, and characteristically in line, we do have a high yield of EMS calls. I will bring your attention to the bottom, where it definitely shows the unit responses as far as 121 Riverton, which is going to be Medic Ladder 121 serving Riverton at that 249. Now, these are unit responses, not to be confused with incidents. So if you have an incident, you could have more than one of those units, meaning you could have a ladder truck, you can have an engine, and you could also have an ambulance. So that's how those are broken down. But it goes through those statistics showing 124's response is also at the 198, and then it also shows station 123, which would be medic engine 123 coming in from Harriman, and that was at 35 in that first quarter, with 103, which would be medic engine 103, a Harriman engine coming to serve Riverton City at that 25 mark. The percentages are broken down. You'll see the total unit responses as far as the heavy apparatus, which is defined as either a ladder or an engine, right there at 509. And if we bump to the right-hand side, Right there, perfect, Jason, thank you. You'll see the 358 total responses by ambulance response, and you'll see those broken down from Station 120, which is Medic Ambulance 120 and 121. Within the city of Riverton, Medic Ambulance 121 is going to have higher responses. Overall, if you go outside, because Medic Ambulance 121 can bump into Harriman, you will see a higher call volume there too if we look at those statistics, but we're just looking at Riverton. I won't spend a ton of time on it, but this is how we grade ourselves, with basically looking at ourselves saying, are we doing okay or not doing good? And that 50th percentile, we're at 5 minutes, 26 seconds. And that's that response time. That's what we can control. Getting up and getting out of that station and getting on the road is our priority. Driving safely is also our priority, but we're doing good with the 90th percentile, meaning 90% of those calls are hitting that under that 7 minute, 33 second mark. So that is quarter one. Quarter two, next slide. I'm not going to dive into all the details, but now you know what we're talking about is what we're seeing as far as quarter two, and this is from April 1st to June 30th, and that 552 mark is the total incidents, 45%, which is just a little bit higher than what we previously saw, so 246 were emergent.
Very similar numbers.
Let's bump to that chart, the bar graph on just right below it where it says quarter two yearly total incident counts. And you're able to compare all of those quarters, right? So second quarter, 506 in 23, 586 in 2024, and then 552 in 2025. So again, we saw in 2024, we saw a higher yield in quarter two. So there are those little bit of differences. And again, as your liaison, if I'm noticing anything that's uncharacteristically high or low, I'm going to definitely pay attention to that and work with our operations section to make sure I address any concerns that we have or any whys behind that. We previously looked at quarter one. I won't spend a lot of time, but you guys can look at the data and see exactly where we're spending there. So with that said, before I go on to some of my talking points, any questions about the data in quarter one or quarter two? No? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I did have a question.
I appreciate the dashboard is very easy to
Okay.
read, so I like that. Councilman Perucci, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, Chief, I really appreciate this. My question is just, have we seen impacts from the construction on Bangalore to response times? And if so, how have we mitigated those impacts?
So as priority one, when your fire crews come on shift, is to maintain or increase their situational awareness to those changes. They are getting all the updates through UDOT, which is a priority to make sure that they have that situational awareness beforehand. But they get in their apparatus and they drive the area to make sure that they know exactly which way to go and which way not to go and not where to get jammed up. I have not received any feedback that they couldn't get anywhere or have any extreme delays. Every once in a while there is, a delay where they call an audible and maybe the second arriving engine can bypass and somebody arrives before the other one. But definitely, I think their situational awareness is maintained. I do also think the Riverton's development has really supported that. I'll give you an example. Old Liberty Way, for resources to get to one side of Riverton City to the other side, has greatly increased our capability. As soon as that roadway went in, I drove it and I said, this has solved a lot of challenges. Bangor Highway can be jammed up with traffic, it can have construction on it, but we have alternate routes. So I just want to say thank you to Riverton City for planning that out, and then that development's really helped the response times too. So anything else, Councilmember Perucci?
No.
Maybe not?
No,
Okay.
and I'm not seeing
No,
anything else.
thank you.
Okay, I do want to say, and this isn't really my place to say it, but I do want to say thank you for all of the improvements to Station 121. I don't want to take any of Riverton's thunder away from all those improvements, but I walked through today, really impressed with the kitchen, really impressed with the improvements. The zero-scaping is amazing, new windows, all those things are very notable, and I talked to the crews and I only received positive feedback. So I'll be brief through the rest, and then I'm open for questions. Just want to make you aware that UFA has created a 4th Battalion So again, span of control, this doesn't directly affect Riverton necessarily, outside of the fact that the battalion chief isn't overwhelmed with many other places to be. They could be here in this area and in the south end of the valley. We do have a recruit camp that has 24 new folks in it that we're going to be graduating here in a few months, and I'll keep you aware of those. Wildland update, during the 4th and 24th, we had the wildland crews overstaffed to make sure that we were ready and able to respond aggressively to any fires within the valley, and especially in Riverton, which we didn't have any, but we did have that large Mill Creek fire the next day. We won't need to go into depth on that. I do want to make sure that I note September 18th, the wildland crew, the fuels crew, is going to be dedicated to Riverton City, and that is in line with the CWPP grant. I just want to make sure that I communicate that clearly, and then I have a few projects that I'll make sure get approval from the city before I move forward with those. Last month I did respond to Ruidoso, New Mexico, on a large-scale flooding. I learned a lot. I'd love to talk to you offline about all that I learned. One thing that I did learn and see a lot was how a local EOC supports that. We don't have to talk here about it. And then also UFA, and I've had many questions about how we could best manage our responses. UFA is doing a pilot program with a low acuity response vehicle and 2 EMTs on that vehicle to treat lower acuities. This is not happening in Riverton, it's happening in a higher density area, but kind of those same things we're learning with that we may apply to other areas within Unified Fire Authority if it's effective and if it's a value for the tax dollar.
Okay.
And we did have last night at the same time the public safety night was going on, which I absolutely enjoyed. We had a great deal of promotions right here in Riverton, UFA promotions. I think we promoted 16 people, so it was a big deal within UFA. We have a new ops chief, a bunch of battalion chiefs, and a lot of those promotions that happen. I think we introduced a few people that promoted last night too, a few of the attendees at the public safety night. So with all that said, any questions?
Congratulations.
Okay.
Councilmember Broker.
You just went over it so quickly, and I want to brag just briefly, but it's great having Marshall Watkins in our city, as he's responsible for fire for safety for UFA, and so he's identified those areas in our city that may be at risk of a wildfire. And so when those crews come on September 18th, they will be working on those areas to clear out any underbrush, those sorts of things that may create an increased fire risk. So that will be extremely helpful for our city. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Move to item 8. This is just our consent agenda. We have the minutes, and then also approving the water purchase agreement with the Conservancy District up it from 4 to 5,000 acre feet, I believe. And the balance of our needs, handled through the green wells. So is there item on the consent agenda a member of the council like to remove, or can we get a motion to approve?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion on the table. Any second?
Broker seconds.
All right. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, number 9, public hearing. This is to approve the Water Conservation Management Plan. Carrie, if you'd like to start out before we open the public hearing.
Yeah, this is just standard practice. Every 5 years we have to update it. It has to go through a public hearing process and adopted by you guys and stuff. So it's really just updated with the newest details in there and goals that we want to set to conserve water. And we hired a company to do it for us this time to just make sure everything was right for the state. They followed Jordan Valley's process and everything, kind of matched theirs and everything. So.
Remind me, our percentages were, and with the finalization of the secondary water metering project, we're probably going to start displaying then uniformly across people's bills what they're using versus what the state recommendations on their irrigable acreage. So we're expecting some type of water conservation attainment there.
Yeah, just them knowing their usage will help conserve there. And then we're also have set goals for our water department to help conserve water by trying to find where our water loss is going, and we're already on top of that. So we're hoping to keep improving on that.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any comments, questions before we open up the public hearing? Councilmember McKay.
was just going to ask, have we converted any city parks this summer? Which city parks were targeted to be moved to secondary water?
All of our we only have 3 parks now that are on culinary.
Okay.
There are some larger sports parks that we actually want to keep a culinary connection to for safety of the kids when the canal does go down and we have to play there. But your main park, your cemetery, Western Springs, and I think that's it actually. Just those 3
Okay.
Okay.
are culinary.
And one other question. I know with our commercial and residential development, we've addressed water conservation on the exterior and landscaping. Do we have anything in place to encourage or to, like, for builders and developers to put in low water faucets and showers and toilets and things like that? Is that something that could be addressed in this plan?
I would assume those all meet the new plumbing standards. Anything being put in has to have those low flow type plumbing fixtures. But other than that, older ones do have the rebates that they could work out, but that's usually a residential thing. I'm not sure on the commercial.
All right, awesome. And have we been able to determine why our water use was, so high? Do we have any input,
I don't. We've nailed it down to some of ours is the water loss. We're either giving water away for free and not calculating it somewhere, or we have leaks. We've been fixing leaks constantly, but they're just pinhole leaks, so they shouldn't be adding up to much. But our crews now are, as soon as they know about a leak, they get it and get going on it. We call it emergency blue stakes, so within 2 hours we can start digging on it and all that. So I've sat down with our water department, set a goal. Like, we have a 20% water loss right now, and our goal is to get under 10% in the single digits by the end of next year. So we're looking into every viable option. Some of these are commercial, some of these are HOAs where they have 2 feeds and one's not reading correctly or something. So it's all these things that we're looking into to try to help with that.
Yeah, that was.
Sounds good, thank you. Just know
Is
how
that-
important water conservation is, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we were a good 20% year-over-year increase when the population growth didn't match that. But these leaks, you're tracking them. And then also, we think that some of it may be these larger HOA communities that have come on. And that I think something that will be borne out in the water study that you're looking at in the coming months, right? And maybe a recommendation on rate schedule changes for some of these
High users, yep.
development communities. Yeah, that's where I think it might be playing in.
Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak about our proposed water conservation and management plan? And anything received online or electronically? No. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to the council for any action discussion here this evening. Council, anything further on 9A? Councilmember Broker.
Prepared to make a motion?
Please, I don't see anybody else mics up, so we're,
Okay, I move we approve resolution number 25-41, the Water Conservation Plan.
McDougal.
I second that.
We'll give it to Andy.
Rucci seconded. Any discussion to that motion? Jamie, could you conduct a roll call vote on this one?
Councilmember McKay,
Yes.
Broker,
Yes.
Haymond,
Yes.
McDougal,
Yes.
Perucci.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. We're up to 10A. This is the discussion. It's up for discussion, possible action. I think this one is just discussion, though, tonight, right, Jason? So on the cast walls along canals, we had one of our planning commission members that I think emailed everybody, right? And you've, Jason, if you want to just kind of review what the suggestion or recommendation was from planning commission members, and if the council wants to discuss this any further.
So the reference is to a part of our fencing ordinance. It's on the screen there. We specifically require along ditches, canals, or other irrigation lines, which is basically most of the waterways in the city, 6-foot-high decorative solid core precast concrete, so the solid concrete fencing. And we exclude from that hollow, foam core, fiberglass concrete mix, other alternative fence types. And then there's a requirement for color. So just to kind of level set, this was amended in 2015 in April, there was a package, or we took a hard look at the fencing ordinance, made quite a few changes to it. This was one of them. You can see in the red there. Prior to that change, it just said fencing along those waterways needed to be solid visual material. We amended that to the language as it currently stands. Just visually, it does allow for block, including split face, as long as it's colored, what is traditionally thought of as the precast style fencing, and brick. And then that reference to fiber cement, Rhino Rock is one of the companies. There are others, but that's kind of become a generic term. In 2015, it was actually at the same meeting where we amended the fencing ordinance. There was some presentation that was made by Rhino Rock as a company. It was a newer product back then, so part of that discussion, not just for irrigation fencing, but for fencing across the board, was that question of durability and that type of thing for that fiber cement. So that is the fencing requirement. That is irrespective of the size of the subdivision. The reason that I say that is there was a little bit of confusion in some of the other conversations I've had. When it's a requirement between non-compatible zones, like residential to commercial, we do have an allowance in our code, in our fencing ordinance, for projects smaller than 2 acres. There's the potential for the Planning Commission to be able to waive that requirement just because of the size. But part of the discussion, at least, I won't say rationale, but part of the discussion behind the waterway fencing did have to do with safety and durability, so that exception is not available for the waterway fencing. Part of the concern that was raised by the Planning Commission, or by that Planning Commissioner, was that is a blanket requirement that, irrespective of the size or number of lots, but that was part of the conversation when that was adopted in 2015. So again, that's the language as it stands. Certainly any feedback, and this is just a discussion tonight, if there is potential or possible code changes that the council would like, we can take feedback, and if directed by the council, bring those back through a review process that would include the commission and council.
Thank you, Jason. I think I'm looking around. I was the only one on the council at that time, 2015, making me feel really old right now, 10 years ago. But I think I was one that was in favor of allowing some of these alternative fence types, because it didn't make sense to me that we wouldn't allow it, particularly along irrigation, canals, ditches, et cetera. I think back then Councilmember Stewart was, I know, very strongly in favor of this, but also largely along arterial roads and with the non-compatible use types when you have animals next to you, and horses and cows, whatever. So if you have RR22 property abutting, something else that it would require that, and I was in favor of that, having it be really solid. But in other areas, I think I voiced some concerns here and wanted much more flexibility. So, I mean, just from a cost perspective, I know when Rhino Rock came in some 10 years ago at that meeting, I think the cost difference between an OWEL precast fence and a Rhino Rock, it was substantial. So just wanting to make options available for the development community along these areas made sense to me, but for whatever reason, I think I was in the minority at that point. So, Councilmember McKay, comments or questions of staff?
Yes, thank you, staff, for putting that together. I do feel like it would be good to have a little more flexibility with this. I was going to ask, I don't think you reached to the SLR development and what was required for them.
The SLR development, we did have in the development agreement, we'll say potential or the ability to craft standards specific to. The only portion that I'm aware of in the thus far in the Mountain View, in the SLR project area, we did approve a wrought iron fence along the SALT development, which is the multifamily project. Part of the reason there was their site sits about 11 feet up above the canal, so there's already a substantial wall there, and so there was that difference. But I know the Viviano project did have solid masonry along their portion of the canal, so there is a couple of different sections there. In that case, the development agreement does give the city some latitude.
And so does this apply both to irrigation channels and creeks or streams?
The language says ditches, canals, or other irrigation lines. I think we've applied that, and by we, the city has applied that fairly consistently to creek channels also, given that they are, they carry irrigation and other water.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I've seen some really nice homes in South Jordan where they make it's a nice little transition from their property into the creek, or having chain link or more open options. I think that especially, it feels like we've been a little more lenient with some of the big developers that can afford the more expensive fences. If someone wanted to put in a wrought iron fence, and I think it's really unfortunate that the whole discussion did start when a child was injured, but also I think that, some of the responsibility is on the homeowner and things like that. But I think that we should allow more flexibility with this, and it would reduce costs. And if someone wanted a little bit more of an open fill, I know even if I was along a canal, I think it can be really pretty and feel a little more rural, and the ducks landing in the canal. And I think that I would like staff to come up with a little more lenient options that maybe we could look at voting on and considering at a future meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And is that limited to just fencing this 18, 155, 150 fences along this type of irrigation, or you're saying just more broadly fencing standards could be reviewed by staff? Is that?
I think especially this one where it feels like it has been a little unfairly applied, but okay. I'm game to look at other fences as well.
Okay, thank you. Other direction by members of the council? We've got Councilmember Baroker.
I've just one additional comment. I think before we make any decisions, we ought to talk to the canal companies. I'd be very interested in their feedback.
Ryan, you jumped at that. I don't know if I should let you in, because this might be prolonged.
The canal companies have nothing to say about this. That's the answer that's been the case historically. I have no reason to believe that anything would be any different now. Utah law very thoroughly and completely protects canal companies from any liability whatsoever for anybody who drowns in a canal. As long as their easements that they keep alongside of their canals are not affected, they have nothing to say about what goes on immediately outside the boundary of their canals. So whatever fence that they have adorning their property, they're just as comfortable having no fence at all. They have nothing to say about it. They don't even, typically, as we can see, they have the option, if they so chose, to fence off and gate entrances onto the canal roads that parallel their canals off of rights-of-way, and you see how often those things are kept locked. So there just really is no desire on the part of canal companies to take anything seriously regarding what goes on around them.
Anything else, Councilmember? No? Councilmember McDougall?
Yeah, Jason, I just need to seek some clarification. If we adjust the fencing requirement, how will that affect developments that have already been approved?
Anytime we make an ordinance change, it does not apply retroactively, meaning let's say we change this ordinance to say other types of fences are now available. That doesn't have the effect of then negating all the previous approvals. A previously approved project could apply for an amended subdivision or development and ask for that change, but that would have to go through the same hearing process. Given the time that's involved in that, it's unlikely that would happen because there's cost and time to re-reviewing. But the change itself would only affect projects moving forward, and any past project, if they did want to take the time to apply for an amendment, that would probably be looked at very, very carefully, because again, they were held to the standard that was in place at the time they were.
And who would make the decision on whether that amendment was approved or not?
The Planning Commission.
Okay. With that in mind, I'm against making any changes to our fencing ordinances. I think we've approved projects where residents have gone through the process and have said, yeah, we're good with this. And for now a developer to have the option of coming back and potentially changing what those residents were expecting, I think, is unfair. I feel like it's almost a little bit of a bait and switch on those residents, particularly if they don't have the opportunity to come to a city council meeting and have us. So, if we look at this, I would, I think there's a couple questions we're looking at, which is, do we look at adding some other masonry type fencing? I will add this. I know the canal company will say anything, but it is much easier for them to manage the weeds when it's a masonry fence versus a vinyl fence or the others, because they have less of a chance of setting a masonry fence on fire when they're burning the canals versus a vinyl fence and stuff like that. So we get a little bit better weed maintenance with more of a solid precast or cement. The other thing it's going to do is, as we are now paving a lot of our canal trails, if we continue to hold the standard, it's going to create more of a unified look down those paved canals if we're sticking with one type versus, opening it up to anything. So I don't mind looking at the masonry style, right? A foam core versus a solid masonry. They're still going to meet, I think, the same visual look. I wouldn't feel comfortable going as far as into vinyl fencing and things like that. I think there's a safety issue there and there's a visual issue. So that's my take on it.
Okay. So thus far, we've heard from three. I wasn't 100%. Councilmember McKay, I think, is open to looking at all different types of materials. Councilmember McDougall, you're saying at least these alternative fence types with respect to solid core, the definition of solid core. You're open to something like that. And Councilmember Baroker, similarly? Okay, so we have at least three that expressed an interest to have it revisited at some level. And this would have to go before planning again, right? And work its way to us on the council. So there would be some time before anything was implemented. Councilman, did you have something else?
Yeah, just really quick, in the interest of saving you guys time of having to go back and forth. If we are going to look at it, though, I would definitely want something in the ordinance specifically stating that all previous developments that have been approved do not get the amended, that they will fall under what they were approved at the time, the fencing ordinance of what they were approved at the time. So it'd be developments moving forward from the time that we change the ordinance that would have the option if we decide on doing that. So that is a component I would want in there, again, depending on where we head with it.
I can understand and appreciate the concern, but Jason, I guess, and Kevin, from my perspective, I would be curious to know how many developments would even be impacted.
It's a great question, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
there has been so much that has occurred. I don't know if we have anything really that.
It would really be a matter of timing. Because it is, we require fencing to be in place before a development can move forward. So a developer would really need to. There are a couple of projects we have right now that have been approved that haven't commenced construction, but the fencing would hold up their ability to move forward. But so I don't know that there's any that would even try to take advantage of that. But point well taken. We'll craft that language to.
To the mayor's point, we can look at what developments at the time that we actually approved that. So that's a good point, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
And when we bring this forward, and we'll expedite that, we'll make sure to include that information.
Thank you. Councilmember Heyman, and then Councilmember Perucci, if you want to weigh in lastly.
Just, Jason, while you're gathering information on this, one thing I'd be interested in knowing, if we're looking at different cores and things like that, is what strength are we looking at there? I know solid core, I mean, it's concrete, it's still brittle, but the foam core, that stuff just disintegrates. We've seen it down here on 118th and Redwood, and that fence there really should be solid core and or concrete posts in front of it, just to protect those yards right behind it. But I'd be scared to put foam core somewhere when we need something with some strength to it.
Yeah. We should be able to put together some kind of relative comparisons for you, so we'll get that.
Okay. Councilmember Perucci, anything? We'll go ahead and close out the discussion.
Yeah, I'd love to also just know what other cities do. What's the norm? I've been driving around all week looking at canals, fencing, and just doing like a spot identification, but I'd love to understand what's the standard. Are we in a outlier. I'd also really like to understand the actual cost difference. Mayor, your point of substantial is something that I've been wondering is like, what does that look like, and what kind of an impact does it have for the end consumer?
Yeah, no, that'd be good. I think you guys, you've got the resources and the connections to be able to maybe just price ballpark linear, by linear foot, I think is what most of these fencing companies, how they price their product. All right, thank you. That's all. Item 10A, we're finished. 10B, day of service discussion. Oh boy. Cheryl, is that you?
Yes. So here's where I need some direction. A couple of years ago, it was very much on the forefront of the LDS Church and our area between the north and the south. What do they call them? Not districts, but anyway. So like my husband was in charge of the north and Mayor Applegarth was in charge of the south. And there was this high expectation that the city should come up with events because in their opinion, day of service was a government mandated event. And so we should be providing events for our volunteers to do. That is extremely labor intensive on the city side, which is totally fine if that's the direction the council would like to go. However, it seems to have drifted off a little bit, and we've only received a couple of phone calls asking for possible service projects. Okay. So we are wondering what direction you would like us to take. If there are, in fact, projects that still need to be done, if we just put them on the Just Serve website and we can direct people to those particular projects. However, I would like to suggest that we encourage our residents to take a look at their own neighborhoods and see where they could be better served their time, because you have every single council district has areas where the older population might need some assistance with their yard. And so it might be better served to beautify our community, to have day of service, give it back to the communities to do, and not so much a city project, if that makes sense. Offering up additional dump passes to those various church groups or organizations that would be interested in cleaning up someone's yard in their neighborhood and help out there. What are your thoughts?
I think we've always offered something at the cemetery, though, and there's probably some projects that we could continue to promote or make available. My only concern with that, I love having the statistics. We usually will tout that we had 300 people out on September 11th, our day of service, and we collectively, as a community, we spent 2,500 hours or whatever the figure is. If there's a way still to capture and quantify the amount of service that we're doing as a community.
Most definitely. We could ask our residents to just either respond to a social media post or to email us directly if their neighbors got together and how many volunteers they had and how many hours they spent doing service in our community. I think personally, as we've discussed in senior staff meeting in the past, some of our big projects need to be saved for liability purposes to city employees. Also, if it's a major project, it can't wait until September to be done. So also, they seem to want something more significant to do than just pull weeds in a city park. And we can't always provide those kinds of services, those kinds of projects for volunteers to do, because family members want to teach their young children how to give service. And we don't necessarily think it might be the safest option to have their 3-year-old around equipment, except picking up garbage or weeds, which is also important to teach young people that we are responsible citizens and we clean up our own trash. If we don't clean it up, someone else has to clean it up for us. So it's probably a philosophical discussion, but we would like some direction from the council as to where you would like us to go with that.
Okay, Councilmember McKay.
Thank you. I know I have loved the day of service in the past, and some that I've been involved with helping as far as city projects. I mean, if it was humanitarian kits or you know, things for the homeless shelter or something like that, let another group organize that. I don't think it's a, you know, benefit to the city per se. But I know that one time there was a bunch of dead grass in a water retention, and men arrived and laid a bunch of sod that the city needed put down, and it saved the city a lot of money. But then also a couple years ago we went to Old Farm Park, and I was amazed at the pile of dried brush and weeds and stuff that they were able to clear out of that. And I think it gives the people a sense of ownership, and they start to feel like it's our park, it's our pond, it's our responsibility to keep it clean. And so, and they brought their own tools. You know, I think the only thing that the city had to do was come and pick up this mountain of trash and weeds that they had collected. And so I thought it was very beneficial. I think our high school sets a great example with Silver Rush, and it's a great way for families to get together and work for the good of our community.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that sense of ownership, commitment, community, it's all what part of our vision, mission statement, strategic plan is, to be able to provide and afford opportunities like that. So I don't know how it's done, but to the extent we can still oversee those things. Councilmember McDougall?
Yeah, I guess on the philosophical side, I'll try and wax Socratic.
Oh, no.
Yeah. If the idea is to actually teach our residents service and community involvement, I think we can accomplish everything we have done in the past, but we can do it on a more small, localized level. To me, service should be organic, and it shouldn't be something that's planned by the city. And being involved with youth over the last 15 years, on a local level, so within my district, whether it be a church congregation or a community, they can still do everything you're talking about. Like you're saying, if we post those service projects and someone in my district wants to get together with the youth and dig up or lay new sod, they can do that with simply contacting the city and saying, hey, here's the need, we want to meet that need. I think the hard thing is we always try to do it on a specific day at a specific time, and that becomes very problematic, to be honest with you. We did the bark one, and the problem is the city, now we're overloading staff. All this bark is there, only enough volunteers showed up to do half the job. Now staff had to divert themselves from their regular workload and their regular maintenance schedule to complete what wasn't done because enough volunteers didn't show up. And so I think personally doing a citywide thing is not as effective as doing a localized thing, where then staff can say, okay, you're tearing up weeds. We'll make sure we've got you dumpster passes or trucks to haul that specific need away, versus on the day of service, watching staff, and I've gone to all of the day of services, we're running them across the city, you know, back and forth, and we just don't have the staff to support the entire city on one day, versus if we broke it down to where the actual need was, when the need is, I think we can better serve that, and it will bring them more involved. So I would like to figure out a way that we could get it done on the local level, whether that's communicating down on the local level, because I think that will be more effective for city and for residents. Then it's not just on 9/11, it's in the spring is maybe a better time for some of these things to be addressed, or at different times when the sod needed to be replaced. So I don't know if that's just creating more work for you, though, Cheryl.
Thank you. Spencer or Councilmember Heyman, do you have any?
Just along those lines, could we do something with our communications where we post, you know, these are needs that we're aware of, or allow the citizens to come in and say, here's service needs, service opportunities, whatever. We might need someone in the staff to kind of keep an eye on that, but just so that we've got everybody around the city saying, here's something that could be volunteered on, and then we've got, whether it's church groups or different organizations or things that are looking for a service project, now we've got a local chart that they can go to and say, we're going to take this one. Just an idea.
That's the concept behind the Just Serve site, right? I mean, so you could direct people.
That's the purpose of the Just Serve, yes.
There.
Yeah, let's do Just Serve Riverton.
To follow up with that, so the Old Farm Park project a few years ago, once our staff got there, you had volunteers that showed up early, and they started cutting down things that should not have been cut down. So there's the opposite of that. I'm not sure there's a project that you could say, let's do this, and just show up and do it without some staff oversight to make sure they weren't cutting down seedlings or that they were or cutting down too many Russian olives because we know the value of Russian olives now that we didn't know before. Those kinds of things. So I'm not sure there's very many projects that you could say, oh, just go clean this up without some sight from staff.
You know what happens when you put a power tool in the guy's hand? I mean, it's like,
let's get her done.
yeah, just ready to go.
All right. Councilmember Baroker.
Thank you, Mayor. I think service is very important to our residents. As has been stated, they really need to understand what they can add to make our city a beautiful place to live. But I'm not convinced that one giant day sends that message to residents. To me, that sends a message that says we've done our part, we're done. And I think from a negative point of view, being involved in a couple of days of service, sometimes when it goes through your ecclesiastical, maybe the assignment isn't embraced. And so maybe the project doesn't go as well as it could have if there had been somebody else involved. And sometimes when you have those organic service projects, for example, you have Gospel of Hope kids show up at the Jordan River and pull tamarisk, which is a completely unattractive job. But they did it cheerfully because they wanted to. They were engaged and they wanted to get that done. Another one is the Butterfly Gardens. We have a great group of volunteers that come every year consistently and get that cleaned up. And most of them, honestly, are not even from Riverton. Summerhill Park, they have a project every single year in the spring where they identify one home that they want to really help that neighbor, whoever it is, and then they clean up along the creek. So I think the more we can send a message to our residents that says, look around your neighborhood, we want you to be involved, we want you to care, contact us. We would love to assist you, we would love to help you. That would be the route I would choose to go.
And I think Brock Stowe was excellent at that with the Youth Council. On day of service, he said, please go find a project and serve. He didn't say, let's get a city project. He said, go out in your community, do a project, send us a picture. And that speaks to your comment.
Okay. Councilmember McDougall again.
Yeah, and I'll just be quick. I love all the comments we're getting. I do think that maybe what we need to do is, what I'd like to try is PR it more. I know we have the website. I just don't know how many people are aware that it's there. So when they're looking for service opportunities, I think maybe we can just do a bit better in PR. And then I liked what the mayor pointed out, which is if we could invite pictures and feedback on the number of hours and the number of people there, so we can track that. But to your point, Cheryl, it sounds like for the most part, we need to have staff there anyway. So if staff can just be reporting back the number of people and hours, like the mayor said, I'd love to find a process by which we can track that amount of service and recognize residents.
I like that. Yeah, that's important to me. I think it aligns with some of the citizen surveys that we've put out and some of our own strategic planning efforts and initiatives. And it's a metric that, if we can quantify the amount of service we're doing, we can see if our community is more engaged or less engaged. And it makes people feel good, I think, that they live in a community that gives thousands of hours literally between them and our youth council and everybody, that they give thousands of hours of service. So to the extent we can.
Also, Councilmember Perucci last year for their day of service, they did it on a weeknight because families are so involved on Saturdays with fall sports. Mm-hmm. And they had actually a better attendance. They did the Rose Creek Channel, a certain section of it. They didn't need any staff there because it was the unattractive project, but they had a very good turnout, and we appreciated the fact that what they were doing did not require additional staff there, and it was cleanup, and they had a better turnout.
Yeah. So I think you're getting some pretty consistent feedback. It's to kind of make it more organic, neighborhood driven, but the city also has a responsibility, as government does generally, to promote the general welfare. Doesn't mean we're providing for it necessarily, that we're the ones that have to spearhead everything per se, but does anybody else want to weigh in?
I did want to say I appreciated that comment, Cheryl, and I would, as part of the PR effort, would love us to also just highlight the fact that we have dump passes available and bags available for people that are doing trail cleanups. I think that's an awesome service that we provide to people that are going to do service. And the more we highlight that, I think the more people will take advantage of it. My neighborhood loved it when we did this last year.
Councilmember Heyman, do you have another?
Just one last comment on the PR side of it is, you know, where we track hours and things like that, and the number of volunteers. Why don't we kind of gamify that and let these groups kind of compete against each other and get them out there like pumped, ready to do their service so they can win.
I mean, there you go.
We can pass around a service trophy, you know, and see who's going to get it, who gets the service trophy next.
Which group? Are you going to create the app, the gamification app for that?
We can figure something out.
And handle the team the team signups, or we'll have Cheryl do that. She's like, thank you. All right, thank you. Good discussion. If there's nothing further, we do have our upcoming meetings. We agreed to not have the meeting on August 19th, just wait till the 26th, since we need to have our Board of Canvassers meeting on the primary election. I'm not aware of a lot that is going to even be on the agenda then on the 26th. Kevin, do you have anything else that?
The 26th, we do plan on doing a debrief of Town Days, as well as talking a little bit about just giving you a heads up on the coming year in terms of the nation's celebration of the 250th.
Okay.
But beyond that, I mean, at this point, we don't know of a lot of other stuff on the agenda. As far as I can recall, we're meeting tomorrow to go through it in greater detail.
Sounds good. So, council, no comments, questions there. You know, that's all we have on the agenda for today. We do need to meet in closed session with respect to real estate, what items C and B, the reasonably imminent litigation, I believe, correct? Okay. So, if there's nothing further, we'll entertain a motion to move into closed sessions for those items.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn our city council meeting to move into closed door session for the strategy session to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation, or to discuss the sale and purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of a water right or water share. At the conclusion of that closed session, I propose that we close our city council meeting.
McKay seconds that.
All right. Jamie, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Baroker?
Yes.
McDougall?
Yes.
Perucci?
Yes.
McKay? Haymans?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Stand adjourned for just a few moments and move into closed session. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight.